Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of thevikingage.com. We do this every Monday night at 6:15 p.m. and Thursday, probably at a time to be determined. But yeah, we have it on Thursday too. But we do it right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. And if you miss it, we got you covered in podcast form the next day on Apple and Spotify. But however you listen, make sure you're liking, subscribing, giving us a good review because we never want you to miss a new episode. And if that is not incentive enough, you can win a Justin Jefferson jersey by doing these things. Check out the details in the description below, and you can have a chance to take home a purple number 18 jersey. My name is Schad. I am a contributor at the Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage and Bring Me the News. On your right is my co-host, Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age podcast. And the Vikings scored a win yesterday, so I am looking through the world in my purple-colored glasses. Adam, I'm just going to lead off with this question right away. How did you feel about that win yesterday?
Oh, I felt good. In the NFL, unlike college, a win is a win no matter what. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter how bad it looks, how good it looks. A win, a 52-point win is the same as a 10-point win or a 3-point win or a 1-point win in the NFL. They all count the same. And sometimes they look like they did yesterday, which is the Vikings playing like poo-poo for most of the day. And then, squeaking it out at the end, keeping their composure, which is something we weren't used to last season or even the season before. So it was nice to kind of see that of them just not panicking. Also, including Kirk Cousins in this group because he seemed to be, despite not playing his best game on Sunday, he still came through when the Vikings needed him the most at the end. And that's I think what we've been just kind of asking from him is we don't need, Kirk Cousins to put up MVP numbers. We need him to help the Vikings when they need him. And they needed him yesterday, and he delivered. And the Vikings got the win. They're tied for first place, but they still have a long way to go.
I went to the game yesterday, and when I walked out, I was kind of mad, to be honest. I mean, I don't think mad's the right word because I was happy the Vikings won, obviously. But I mean, I sat there and I was just kind of like, this is the same damn team. It's the same team we've seen the past 2 years where it's like, oh, yeah, well, we just can't get over the hump. We can't make the playoffs. And I mean, there are plenty of reasons that you could sit there and go like, all right, this game was handed to the Vikings, right? Because like Dan Campbell decided not to go for it on fourth down late in the game, despite the Detroit offense moving the ball up and down the field whenever they wanted.
Not even go for it, just kick a field goal, which made it worse than punting.
Yeah, because it drove them back even further. So like the Vikings got the ball at midfield. I didn't even think of that. So I mean, Kirk Cousins finds KJ Osborne with 45 seconds to go. But I mean, this game, like look at the list of excuses Mike Zimmer would have had. Because I mean, Kirk was off his game. Dalvin Cook got hurt. Justin Jefferson was shut down. Greg Joseph missing 2 field goals. I mean, that alone would have had him reaching for his shotgun.
Badly.
There's the whole and the thing is too, like I'll ask you about this. The whole end of game sequence, it's 4th and 8 with about 2:20 to go. The Vikings don't get it. And I'm sitting there wondering today, does Zimmer punt instead of going for it in that scenario? He's like, I gotta trust my defense will get the ball back.
What do you mean third? Was it third? Was it third? Did they punt? Yeah, they did punt because they still have.
They didn't.
3. Oh,
they went for it on 4th and 8.
You're right.
Detroit got the ball back.
You're right.
And then they ran 3 times. Mike Zimmer special and kicked a 54-yard field goal. So I mean, like you think of it that way. Zimmer punts and like. Lions get the ball back. They run. It's 4th down. And like in that scenario, Dan Campbell doesn't have the temptation of putting points on the board, which is what happened there. Because he had the ball deep in Vikings territory. He's like, well, I can add to the league. Then they have to score a touchdown. Like they can't settle for a field goal, which is analytically a horrible decision. But like if he's on his own end, he's like, what do I have to lose here? Like, I'll just run the ball. If they get it back, they kick a field goal and tie it up, right? Or worst case scenario. So I don't know. I mean, you also have to wonder on that last drive too, does Zimmer call a conservative game plan? Does he
Oh
go,
yeah,
well, we gotta make sure Detroit can't get the ball back, so we
yeah.
gotta score with whatever. Kevin O'Connell was just like, screw it, just score. Like, you have to score to win the game. So if they have 45 seconds, if they have 40 seconds, whatever. I mean, he did not think about his defense at all. He's like, we're just gonna try and score. And that's exactly what the Vikings did. So it you know, I mean, I liken it to, since we're wrestling fans, like when Roman Reigns defends his title, right? Because like there's a whole, like his match against Drew McIntyre, right? There's a whole bunch of things that went wrong. Like McIntyre hit the Claymore, he should have won, and then Solo Sikoa like pulls him out of the ring, and like he winds up winning. Probably should have lost the match, right? But he's still the champion. Like that is exactly how they acted, even in the locker room. Like Kevin O'Connell dropping F-bombs and just like, this is who we are. We found out who the bleep we are, and we're going to another bleeping continent. I'm like, I would run like the Chicago game, like with Mike Zimmer sitting there, and he's just like, great win. You guys did a lot of things wrong, but great win. You know what I mean? Like Kevin O'Connell's like, we went in saying no matter what happens on that field, we're going to win this game. And like that mental toughness is exactly why the Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell. So when I think about that, like this is a big win. This is. And I mean, 1-2 is a hell of a lot worse than 2-1. So I'm going to take it.
Yeah, and if you go 1-2, then what happens next couple. Now you can afford to have maybe have a loss or even two the next couple games. I wouldn't recommend it, but now you get that confidence though that you can still hang in there in late game scenarios. Unlike maybe last year where they were involved in a bunch of these and it was just like, oh, here we go again. We're gonna get our hopes up and then they're gonna not be able to come through in the end. And they were able to this time, which against the Detroit team that, probably they might make the playoffs, they might not this year. They still have a bunch of things to fix, but they're a competitive team. They've been in every game this year. They almost beat the Eagles, who look probably like the best team in the NFC right now. They lost to them by 3 points. So that loss in week 2 by the Vikings looks a heck of a lot better after yesterday's Eagles game too. Not that the Commanders are that good, but the Eagles they're a very good team. The Vikings, they did a lot of things that went wrong, but in the end they won, and that's what matters. That's what matters in the NFL, that you win. Like the Bills yesterday, totally outplayed the Dolphins, like in every facet of the game, but they don't care about that. They didn't win. Their offensive coordinator who smashed his tablet and everything in the box upstairs. He didn't care that they outgained the Dolphins by like so many yards. They lost. That's what matters in the NFL. And yesterday the Vikings won. Now they're 2-1. They get to go to London to play the Saints, who don't look that good. They get to play the Bears, and they play the Dolphins, who are looking a little banged up right now. So the schedule's looking pretty good, and then I think they play the Cardinals coming on the bye, so it's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good for the Vikings right now.
It reminds me when Mike Zimmer was like flexing that they were 4th in total offense, like after the 2020 season. Like, this was an explosive offense. I loved Gary Kubiak. It's like, well, yeah, you ranked 12th in points and you missed the playoffs. Like, Alvin Kamara gored you on national television on a Christmas game. Like, you shouldn't be here right now. But I mean, it's a change. And I mean, there's obviously stuff to work on. We're going to get to that in just a second here. But I mean, the fact that the Vikings didn't have their fastball, so to speak, and still won, I mean, that's why they made a coaching change, because, everybody's talked about it. It's like, I think Kevin O'Connell can get a little bit extra out of this team. And if you win 2 or 3 more games that you're not supposed to, you're a playoff team. It would have worked last year. All they needed was 1, because the Eagles got in, the Vikings were sitting at home. So,
yeah, and one other thing on the difference between Kevin O'Connell and Mike Zimmer is that, Mike Zimmer, no matter how his defense played the last few years, he kind of blindly would go into games or in situations where, like, let's play for overtime. My defense can, stop them. And Kevin O'Connell's like, I don't trust this defense, regardless of how many like stops they've made on 4th down today or 3rd down or plays that they've made. I just want to go win the game right now. We have the opportunity to do that. Let's go do that. Let's not mess around and kick a field goal and then maybe not win it in overtime because I think that my defense can save us. I think that's a big difference between O'Connell and Mike Zimmer, where Zimmer would have been like, "No, my defense can stop," and it's like, probably not. So I like that out of O'Connell, where he just kind of just went for the jugular, I guess, yesterday with that throw to that play call to KJ Osborne because he didn't throw it. But
Well, here's what we'll do, because there were a lot of things that went wrong. We kind of talked about the positives and everything, but I want to talk about, you know, how concerned we should be about some of the things that went wrong in yesterday's game. So this will just be a game called How Concerned Are We? Creative, right? I'll give you some things that have gone down so far, and you pick a number 1 through 10. One's being not so much, and 10 being end of Mike Zimmer era concerned. And let's start with Dalvin Cook's shoulder injury. He got hurt on a carry in the third quarter, bashed into Ezra Cleveland, immediately dropped the ball, and everybody pounced on it, and Dalvin Cook rolled around on the ground and looked like he had been shot. He apparently is okay, according to him. Says he's going to play next week. Alexander Madison stepped in, had 7 carries, 28 yards, and a touchdown. So how concerned are you with Dalvin Cook's injury?
It's probably a 3 or a 4. Like, it doesn't sound serious. You remember last season when they brought out the cart? I think it was against the 49ers. They brought out the cart for Dalvin Cook, and everyone was like going to him, like touching hands and everything, and like saying, "Oh, like prayers and stuff." And like, he didn't miss a game after that, because that was the same exact injury. He put a brace on. He separated his shoulder. Apparently, he has like a torn labrum that just hasn't been fixed, and he's supposed to wear a brace, but he doesn't. And then so that got hurt yesterday, but now he says he'll be fine. He'll wear a brace. He wore one last season. He wore one, I believe, in the 2019 playoffs when they played the Saints and the Niners. That was a different injury, but shoulder stuff. Like he's got some shoulder problems in his career. I think even in college, he hurt his shoulder in the weight room. And I think that's probably where all this started. But yeah, and then you got Alexander Madison. Say what you will about him as a number 2 guy, not that big of a fan, but when he is number 1, he seems to step up and step his game up. He had a nice run yesterday. To get in the end zone, I think he averages about like around 140 total yards in his 4 starts last year. So that's pretty good. And like running back is not a focal point of the Vikings offense anymore. It's not. Like it's important. They want to still have it to establish the run for their play action game, but it's really not like there's no bell cow guy, there's no workhouse guy, there's no 3 down back. Like he's back there. Like that whole last drive the Vikings had yesterday. I don't think they targeted Alexander Madison or anything like that. And I'm not sure if that would have been the same in the old offense if Kirk Cousins would have looked for like Dalvin Cook on a couple swing passes just to get some yards. But no, they were just looking downfield the whole time because their running back is not as big of a factor in this offense. So my concern level, not that high, especially because Dalvin's like, I'm going to play. Do I think he should play? Probably not. Playing the Saints, like it's week 4. Would the Vikings rather have you at the end of the season than a week 4 game against the Saints? They'd probably want you to be there at the end of the season instead of right now. So if he needs to, if there's signs that he should rest, I think the Vikings should give him that rest.
I think as a running back, it's always complicated because I think a lot of people want to try and play through it so they can get their money, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and I mean, Dalvin Cook's already got paid. He'll be fine, but like he doesn't want them to come to him at the end of next season and be like, well, you missed a couple of games with the shoulder again. We're going to have to knock it down, or
well, that's too bad. That's going to happen.
You can go sign a free agent deal for $2 million somewhere for 1 year. Like, that's part of the thing. And the other thing, it's just so weird because Cook, like he gets hurt, he fumbles, he goes, I mean, he didn't go off on a cart this time, but I mean, it's just somebody likened it to Xavier Rhodes, like how he would get burned and like all of a sudden like start limping around like his hamstring.
He pulled a hammy.
Yeah, he pulled a hammy or whatever, but this is just like the shoulder. I don't know, man. I mean, like you said, I don't think running backs are as important to the Vikings offense anymore. Like they can just shuffle them in. I think if you want a prediction, I think they draft one in next year's draft, and I think they do it early. Yeah, I mean that's kind of
Well, they
what
got
I'm
Ty
thinking
Chandler
there.
too. They like
Yeah,
him a lot. He did
yeah,
well in the preseason.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
I mean, add one more, man. I mean, the more cheap, controllable running backs you have, the more
yeah,
options you can. I mean, I think the 49ers draft one every year, and they
and
have Elijah Mitchell.
undrafted guys. How many undrafted guys come in and just are able to make an impact? You know, think about
Right.
Mike Boone. Mike Boone's still out there. He's still doing his thing with the Broncos. There's a bunch of guys that the Vikings have had over the years that were just undrafted. So I think running back Dalvin Cook has a $14 million cap hit next year. Nah, don't think so. I think the Vikings are going to do whatever they can to reduce that, or see if they can trade him next year, because it's for the type of offense that they have. Like Kevin O'Connell can sit there all day and be like, oh, he's an important part of our offense. He's a captain. He's a leader in the locker room. But like, you cannot pay a running back in this offense. Like if that's Derrick Henry in the Titans offense, who's like 80% of that offense, pay him that money. But not Dalvin Cook. No, not anymore.
The next one on my list is the Vikings offense. Through 3 games, the Vikings ranked 16th in points. Kevin O'Connell is a first-time play caller. And Kirk just hasn't looked too great through the first 3 games.
Nope.
He overthrew a wide open touchdown to KJ Osborne on Sunday. The average depth of target ranks 30th in the NFL. It's oddly ahead of Aaron Rodgers, which I thought was really interesting. But how concerned are you that the Vikings offense hasn't really gotten going yet?
I'll put it at a 6. It's still early. It's a new scheme. I think we saw last year with the Rams, it took Matthew Stafford probably around mid-season to kind of get in the groove, figure out, how to run that offense really well. I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened with Cousins and the rest of this offense. They're still trying to figure out how to get Justin Jefferson the ball as much as they can, who's been kind of shut down the last two games. They're still trying to figure out how to get other people involved. They just figured that out. They just remembered that Adam Thielen's on the roster yesterday, and KJ
He hadn't
Osborne.
been targeted in so long. I forgot he wasn't from Minnesota.
Detroit Lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I did earlier today. I posted a stat that was completely wrong. I posted that like the Vikings were number 1 in third down and opposing passer rating this season. That was actually their passer rating for offense on third down. So they're actually 32nd in passer rating on third down this year, which is not good. I think it's like 26 point whatever something. That's not good. So they got to figure something out with that. But I think these next few weeks will be a good opportunity for them, like against the Saints and Bears, who are not as good of teams, I feel like, as the Eagles and even the Lions. I think it'll be a good opportunity for them to kind of work some things out. And then they got the bye coming up in a little bit, and they'll be able to go back and look at some of the things they can work on, get rid of some stuff that's not working. And yeah, I'm not. It's if it's like this at Thanksgiving, yeah, I'll be much more concerned. But if it's like this for the next few weeks, I'm still not gonna be that worried. Coming out of the bye, I expect things to be a little better than they are right now. And yeah, I'm not. They're winning. Like I said, they're winning. So it's not as big as a concern as it probably should be, but they're winning. So
We got Kirktober coming up too.
and we
I
we
mean,
do.
yeah, Kirktober starts on Saturday. So I don't know. 2-1 going into Kirktober. Maybe Kirk Cousins turns it on here. You
I
don't
feel like it
know.
kicked off with the noon, home game against the Lions. That was like a pre Kirktober party. That he kicked it off with the final drive there.
It's like the Ultimate Warrior when the planets of the Grimlap system align or whatever he was talking about. Just like, whatever. But
Whatever he was talking about is a really, really great, description of anything that the Ultimate Warrior ever said during his career, because I don't think anyone ever knew what he was talking about.
Load the spaceship with the rocket fuel. Loaded with warriors. The Vikings rushing defense, though, allowing 139
Yeah.
yards yesterday, 4 yards per carry on the ground. Jamal Williams went full Hingle McCringleberry. Remember, it's just 2 pumps. A third one is a flag. Obviously, he didn't get the memo there. I wonder if the ref just flew through the flag, just thinking, just like seeing the skit and being like, all right,
That was
that's
3.
like
I gotta
that
do
was
it.
3. That was 3. 4.7 yards per carry, ranks 19th on the
Yeah.
season for the Vikings. What's your level of concern on the Vikings rushing defense?
It's not good, but it seems like that's kind of what they want to do. It feels like they'd rather have the offense run the ball than pass the ball. They seem like they're more setting up to defend the pass than they are the run. They've been having light boxes. They've been having more defensive backs on the field. So it's I've seen this a lot today where it's like a bend but don't break defense, and so far it's working because I don't think they've allowed a point in the fourth quarter. They ranked like 6th in second half points allowed, and they ranked like 10th overall in points allowed this season. So like, it doesn't look good. Like when you're watching it, you're like, "What? They're missing tackles. They're gashing them for yards and everything. The other team's averaging like 6 yards a play." But then you look at the final score, and it's like, well, I
Oh, we
guess it,
won.
yeah, I guess it wasn't that bad. They didn't score in the fourth quarter. So like I don't know what to think of the defense yet because it was like, yeah, yesterday the lines went up 14-0, and I'm like what is this defense? They're not doing anything. And then it seems like they make a lot of adjustments at the half because it felt like in the second half the Vikings were maybe playing a little more tighter coverage, a little more maybe even man coverage. And it seemed like that worked a lot better than what they were doing in the first half because they couldn't really stop the Lions. But the run defense is concerning, but I don't know if it's concerning to the Vikings. So if it is concerning, then they'll probably sign someone like Ndamukong Suh or something. But I don't know if they're that concerned about it either.
Well, I mean, Ndamukong Suh is not exactly a run stuffer.
He
He's
was
more
back
of
in the
a
day,
Yeah,
not
he's more
anymore
of
probably.
a pass rush
Yeah,
specialist now.
yeah,
And they could also use that as well. I'm
yeah,
not gonna lie.
yeah.
But I mean, I like the concept of this defense. Kind of thinking about where you play that shell, you want 2 guys back there, you want
That
to
needs to be a
stop the
drinking
big
game.
play,
That needs to be a
and
drinking game.
the cover
Every
2
time
shell.
someone
Yeah.
says shit, like Brady Quinn said that 19 times. Just, "Oh, it's the shell coverage," and then I think Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were saying that a bunch too. And I'm like, this needs to be a drinking game. Like every time they say this or they say Kirk's accurate, like you're just gonna be blacked out by the second quarter.
Do they does Donatel run the shell defense because his name is eerily close to the Ninja Turtle? Just
Maybe,
thought of that.
maybe.
Maybe he is a Ninja Turtle and we just
Yeah,
don't know it.
he's
Or Master Splinter
a
or whatever.
former he's a former Ninja Turtle, just retired.
Just retired and decided to coach football. Just couldn't handle the life anymore. Um, how about Lewis Seen not playing a single defensive snap? 32nd overall
Yeah.
pick, limited to special teams. What do you think is going on there?
Um, I think it was a little concerning, but I talked to someone who runs the Georgia site for Fanside today. I would put it at a 4. They said that when he was at Georgia, it did take him a little longer to kind of come along and learn the defense there. But once he picked it up, it was just like there's no stopping him. So I'm just going to assume that that's the case right now. And once he does pick it up and get more of a hang of it, then they're going to put him in there, and he's going to be just, you know, firing on all cylinders. So after today, I'm not too concerned. Sometimes rookies just come along slowly. And sometimes it's not good to rush them out there. We look at guys like Brian O'Neill, Christian Darrisaw. They all came along slowly. Trey Waynes probably took 2 years to become a starter. Even
Mhm.
Xavier Rhodes probably was out there sooner than he should have been. A bunch of guys that just rookies, especially in the defensive backfield, because the NFL, the rules are so much different between college and the NFL in terms of what you can do as a defensive back and what you can't do as far as like illegal contact and holding and all that stuff. So I'm not worried. I think if he's on special teams, so that's what he needs to like focus on right now. Right now, he's on special teams, make plays on special teams. He starts making plays on special teams, he's gonna get more playing time on defense. So do what he can do right now, and then take it from there. But I'm not worried. Josh Metellus played well, so you can't really argue with what the Vikings did. I didn't think it was going to go that way because Josh Metellus is a 6th-round pick who's never had a start in his career. But it was a good decision by the Vikings. It turned out to be. So I can't argue with what they did.
I think was seeing Matt Daniels was talking about him, and he said that he's a reps guy. Like he learns through reps,
Yeah.
where maybe he just struggles in the classroom and kind of
Yeah.
has some issues with that. I mean that is definitely something possible. I want to see what happens as the season goes along. Like you said, maybe if it's November and he's only playing special teams, we might have a little bit of a problem there. How about Greg Joseph missing 2 kicks? A lot of people seem to think it was because the gates were open. There's a little bit of wind.
Yeah. What?
Like,
Is that real?
What do you think?
Could you feel a difference?
I couldn't tell you it was windy. I also had some beverages before the game. So I mean, if it were, but it wasn't like a cyclone, like a wind tunnel in there. Maybe
Right.
it's windier on the field than it is in the stands, but
it was the same. It's weird because it was like the same spot. Because the last kick that the Lions kicker had was like kind of from the same spot, and it went right too. So it was weird. Maybe it was just a weird day, and the Vikings can just close the doors next time. Because I don't think that's the advantage that they thought they were going to have. Not worried yet. I emphasize the yet because this is a Vikings kicker. We all know how this goes. I think Greg Joseph could go 40 for 40 on field goal kicks during the year, and people would still be worried with him lining up for a kick in the playoffs. So I'm not worried. They're 56 yarders, which I think is close to his career long. So his chance of making that was pretty low anyways. I think the fact that Kevin O'Connell had the confidence to put them out there for the second time, because he missed that first one like real bad. Like it went to the sideline pretty much. So
that was bad as soon as it went off his foot.
Yeah, like it was bad. So I think he should have some confidence that Kevin O'Connell still felt comfortable with him kicking another 56-yard field goal, and he still missed it. But at the same time, we've been hearing all year, or I guess from Matt Daniels, about how Greg Joseph's been on fire in the summer. He's made all his kicks before this. He made all 4 of his extra points. So no, I'm not. I'll put this at a 2, but at the same time with an asterisk because this is a Vikings kicker, and we know how this can spiral out of control very quickly. So
for right now, I'm not concerned. If it gets to a point where he starts shaking a bunch of kicks, then I'll get concerned. And I think this staff too, like I said, like Mike Zimmer would have lost his mind over the 2 missed kicks, right? Like you probably would have attempted.
He wouldn't have had. I bet you he wouldn't have had another 56-yard attempt yesterday.
Right.
If Mike Zimmer was the coach, he'd been like, no, he's not doing that again.
Yeah. I mean, not good. And I mean, that's the good thing about O'Connell's staff is that he trusts them enough to like give them opportunities and let them keep going. So, I mean, we'll just kind of see how that plays out. How about the Vikings finishing without a single sack yesterday? Goff was only pressured on 32% of his attempts. The Vikings aren't blitzing. Like I think I saw it was 10% of dropbacks have occurred against a blitz this year. So, what do you think about that?
I think pressures are actually more important than sacks these days. I feel like those should probably sacks are always going to be like this big thing, show the sack record and everything, and people pay attention more to sacks. But I think pressures have a more of an impact on the game than sacks do, at least these days. And Zadarius Smith had like 5 pressures yesterday. A couple other people had some pressures, so I'm not too worried about that. You'd like to see them get home, but they still, like on that final throw that Jared Goff had, that was because Zadarius Smith kind of forced him to the outside, and he had to throw it or else he was going to get hit. And then Metellus got the interception. So, when they needed pressure, they brought it. And also the Lions have good offensive line. Just like the Eagles a couple weeks ago, they had they have a really good offensive line, and the Lions have a pretty good one too. They're one of the best running teams in the league for a reason. So I'm curious to see how they do against a team like the Saints and the Bears, whose offensive lines are not that good. If it'll be closer, because we've seen them bring pressure. We saw against the Packers, they had pressure all day. So I'm not concerned about that. No, not. I am a little concerned about Danielle Hunter. He's been kind of quiet. So maybe standing up isn't the best role for him after all, but we'll see. It's still early. It's so early.
I think there's just a lot of things that they're adjusting to on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you don't play preseason games, and they shouldn't have. That was absolutely the right move.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, especially with new system, new offense, new defense, new everything, like you're going to have problems like that. And there are going to be growing pains. I think Alex Boone was on Score North and he said it takes about 5 or 6 weeks to get really comfortable with the system. And it wouldn't surprise me if Danielle Hunter's kind of trying to ease his way into standing up again and kind of knowing what he's supposed to do. So, I mean, I'm not hitting the full-fledged panic button. I mean, that's the thing. Like having a performance like this in September, that it's fine. When you go out with a win,
and you win,
it's a lot better. And now if they had lost that game, this is probably a different podcast. But I mean, you win. You work through some of the kinks, and hopefully you get better as the season goes along.
That's what's most important. I think that's what O'Connell's trying to pitch to these guys. Like, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes, especially to Cousins. Like, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. He's probably off to one of the worst starts of his career this season. But you know what? Vikings are 2-1, and that's what matters. Like, they're winning games. It doesn't matter if you throw an interception, if you miss a tackle. It matters if you win the game, and you have to do whatever you can to do that. And right now, they are. So I think that's the mindset that they need to keep having for the rest of the year. It's okay to make mistakes. You'll fix it during the week or try or whatever, but just win the game. That's all.
So the Vikings will now travel to London. They will take on the Saints. We'll talk about this a little bit more on Thursday, but just a quick look right now. How optimistic are you feeling going into that game after the win on Sunday?
I was feeling pretty good, but then I saw the line, and the Vikings are only favored by 2.5. And I guess it's technically a road game.
Yeah.
But it's not because it's in London. So maybe they're just factoring in like both teams are just going to be kind of weird because it's in London and those games are always weird.
Yeah.
But the Saints are not playing good this year. Jameis Winston does not look good. The defense is probably the best thing about that team. I'm curious to see how they approach covering Justin Jefferson because they have Marshawn Lattimore. And are they going to just keep him on him? Or are they going to do what the Lions did and have like 3 guys covering him? Or if you ask like PFF or Bleacher Report, it was only Jeff Okudah. It wasn't 3 people on Justin Jefferson the whole time. Have you seen those graphics of like Jeff Okudah shut down Justin Jefferson all day on Sunday? I'm like, he had 3 people on him. Like, it wasn't Jeff Okudah by himself. Maybe he played well, but it was not just him. So yeah, I'm curious about that. It's the Viking Saints. We don't like the Saints. They don't like Vikings fans or the players. So I'm curious to see how this goes, but I feel confident. I don't think the Saints are good. They just lost to the Panthers. And so they're not good. And I think Taysom Hill's even out, and he's a guy who's kind of hurt the Vikings in the past. So I'm not
they're pretty banged up right now. I mean, even Marcus Lattimore is a little bit rusty. I think Justin Jefferson bounces back in this game.
Yeah.
I really think that knowing his character, at least how we know it, we don't know the actual person, but I'm just saying, like, he seems like a guy who would take this performance personally and be like, yeah, it's not happening again. And now that Kirk has hit Osborne and Thielen and some of the other targets downfield, maybe he'll start to feel a little bit more comfortable. And like you said, maybe that was the pregame party for Kirktober as he goes to London and could very well light up a susceptible Saints team. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. Some people are a little bit upset that it's starting super early. You'll be watching it at 6:30 in the morning, but then that's
Hey,
not my problem.
there's people in Hawaii too who are Vikings fans. I posted this yesterday that kickoff for them is at 3:30. And I was like, it's at 3:30, but you also live in Hawaii, so you get that benefit of your life. And a bunch of them were like, "Yep, that's me. I'm gonna be waking up super early to watch the Vikings." What do you think about? Because we're talking about Jefferson here, like people kind of shifting, kind of trying to point the blame at Cousins' struggles on Jefferson struggling. I guess they're saying like he's not running the right routes. He's dropping passes, and it's like he's getting covered by like two or three guys every time. It's not like it's the easiest thing in the world. So I'm just curious, like what are you thought about? Because I've seen it more often than I probably should, where people are like, "Well, what's Kirk supposed to do? Justin Jefferson, he's not running the right routes. He can't catch." Like, and I'm like, Justin Jefferson is really good. That's why he's getting this gigantic attention from the defense. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, there are also moments where Kirk is again checking down.
Yeah.
He overthrew Osborne on that
Oh
long thing. I
yeah.
mean, I don't think this is anyone's fault. I
That's
hate
the
that
thing too.
part
Like
where it's just like
it's not a
it's
competition.
your fault. It's your I love my Kirky. Yes, I do. Don't never make fun of Kirky. Nobody's fault. They're winning. They're winning games. Like that's the whole thing. And it's just like everybody's just like, no, but I gotta validate that Kirk's the greatest quarterback we've ever had since
Because he beat
Fred
the
Tarkenton,
Lions.
and
Because he
he
beat the
beat the Lions
Lions.
at noon on a
Yeah.
Sunday, and he had mac and
He's
cheese for
listen.
lunch. And
Listen. He's supposed that game yesterday. That's what he's supposed to do. Okay, he's supposed to do that. Now, go do that against the Bills. Go do that against the Dolphins. Go do that in the playoffs. Like, do it again. He's supposed to do that yesterday. That's what our expectations of him have always been. You need to do this. So when it does happen, I don't want these people coming out and be like, "Oh, I told you so. I told you he can carry the team and everything." You are supposed to beat the Lions inside your own
yeah,
building at
mm-hmm.
noon. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a grand accomplishment that you did this. And like, he's had other comeback wins too, like this, where it's against like the Broncos in 2019 when they were terrible, and against the Bears last year in Week 18, which is a game that didn't matter at all. Like, do it when it matters. Like, this might be discrediting what he did yesterday, but you're supposed to do that yesterday. He's supposed to do that. So keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Do it when it counts. We will keep doing it right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel every Monday and Thursday night at 6:15 p.m. We are also available on demand at Spotify and Apple Music. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, and you can win a Justin Jefferson jersey for doing that. Check the comments or check the description below, rather, to get all of the rules there. And for Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. We'll see you Thursday, but until then, Skol.